They laughed at the old man, but the next day he bought the company and fired everyone. If you enjoy the stories, please subscribe. It would greatly help the channel. The bar was softly lit, creating a cozy atmosphere, but Mr. Almeida felt like a stranger in his own city. The gentle music playing in the background was drowned out by the loud, boisterous laughter of the young executives sitting at the next table. They were animatedly discussing the company's new projects, but what caught the old man's attention the most were the jokes they made about him. "Look, here comes the eccentric old man again. What will he do? Tell another story about the good old days?" one of them said, followed by laughter that echoed throughout the bar. Almeida, with white hair and a face marked by time, held his whiskey glass firmly, trying to ignore the taunts. He knew that many in the city saw him as a fool, someone who had lost his place in the modern world. But in truth, he was much more than that. In recent years, he had amassed a considerable fortune by investing in startups and new businesses. What the young people didn't know was that he had a plan in mind, a plan that would soon challenge their expectations. Later, as the bar began to empty, Almeida stood up slowly, deciding it was time to put his plan into action. He left the bar and walked through the city's illuminated streets, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and determination. Each step he took brought him closer to his true intention. The company the young people admired so much was actually one of his most recent acquisitions. He was already the owner, though no one knew it yet. The next morning, the city awoke with an air of anticipation. The sun shone brightly, and Mr. Almeida was already in his office, an elegant, modern space adorned with paintings that reflected his wisdom and experience. He looked out the window, observing the city that had ignored him for so long. On his face was a smile of satisfaction. He had prepared everything for the big announcement. The young executives, as always, arrived early, discussing their tactics for the next big project. But to their surprise, the atmosphere shifted when they received an unexpected email. The subject line was simple: New Chief Executive Officer. Each of their hearts skipped, and conversations ceased abruptly. Mr. Almeida, the one they had all mocked, was about to make his grand entrance. In the blink of an eye, they found themselves in the company auditorium, where Almeida awaited them. He stood there with a serious demeanor, but his eyes sparkled with a mix of determination and compassion. "Good morning, young ones," he began, his voice echoing with an authority they did not expect. "Today, I am here not just as the new owner, but as someone willing to teach the value of experience and respect." The reactions were immediate. Some young people tried to hide their surprise, while others looked perplexed. Almeida continued, revealing his vision for the company, but also announcing that the culture of mockery and disrespect they had cultivated would no longer have a place there. "I'm here to fire all of you," he stated with a firm look. The room fell silent, and the old man knew it was time to reclaim his honor and teach a valuable lesson about respect and humility. Murmurs in the room intensified, each young person exchanging looks of disbelief. The bravado they had shown the night before quickly faded, giving way to a mix of fear and confusion. Mr. Almeida, sensing the unrest, remained resolute. "You may be wondering why I'm doing this. The answer is simple. Respect and dignity are not optional but essential in any workplace. When you laugh at someone for their age or experience, you not only undermine the person, but also the history they carry." He took a deep breath, the words heavy on his mind. "Your arrogance has been a reflection of a culture that is unsustainable. This company, which you all idolized, needs a fresh start, and that start begins here and now. It's not just about firings, but a new beginning for all of us." The faces of the executives turned pale. Those who once considered themselves invulnerable now felt on the front lines of an attack. One of the young men, a certain Lucas, who stood out for his audacity, raised his voice. "But sir, that's not fair. We all worked hard to get here." The indignation in his tone echoed through the room, but Almeida remained unfazed. "Working hard is not synonymous with respect. Each of you has potential, but you need to learn that success is not built on laughter at the expense of others. It's built on collaboration, learning, and above all, mutual respect." He looked directly at Lucas, who now felt small under his piercing gaze. If your vision of success is to belittle those who came before you, then you do not belong in this place." Silence settled again, heavy and awkward. The employees began to realize that the old man was not just an owner. He had become a symbol of resistance against the inflated ego culture that dominated the company. A murmur began to spread through the room like a distant echo. Some began to question their own attitudes, while others tried to find a way to reverse the situation. "Not here just to fire," Almeida continued, now calmer. "I'm here to create a space where everyone can learn from each other, regardless of age or experience. Starting tomorrow, we will initiate a mentorship program. The younger ones will learn from those more experienced, and vice versa. Together, we will build an environment where everyone feels valued." With that, a soft murmur of approval began to rise among the employees, who had previously been completely terrified. Some started to move as if awakening from a trance, realizing that perhaps Almeida was not the villain they had imagined. Instead, he was offering a second chance, an opportunity for change. But the minds of the dismissed were already in motion. Some of the young executives, who once considered themselves invulnerable, began to devise plans to sabotage Mr. Almeida's new vision. If they could not remain in the company, they would do everything to discredit their new leader and ensure he did not achieve the success he sought. Meanwhile, Almeida observed the room, noticing the shift in the atmosphere. The tension still lingered in the air, but now there was a subtle hope beginning to emerge among those who were deciding to unite around the new culture he was trying to implement. He knew the battle was just beginning, but he was willing to fight not just for himself, but for all those who wanted a place where respect and dignity were valued. The mood in the conference room began to change, but not in the way Mr. Almeida had hoped. While some employees were joining him in the quest for a fresh start, others, especially those who felt threatened, were uniting in a conspiratorial silence. They spread throughout the office, whispering to one another, plotting ways to destabilize the new regime. Later, in a corner of the cafeteria, Lucas and 3 other young executives gathered around a table, their expressions filled with determination. "We need to act fast," Lucas said, his fervent tone grabbing the others' attention. "He may have the company, but we can't let him turn everything we've built into a mere morality lesson." "Yeah, and this mentoring thing? It's an invitation to mediocrity. We can't allow the old guard to ruin what we've worked so hard for," added Sarah, one of the newest executives, crossing her arms in disdain. "We need to show everyone that his vision isn't the only one that matters. How about we start spreading rumors about his management? Say he lacks the experience to lead this company." Meanwhile, in Almeida's office, things were no longer calm. He was surrounded by piles of financial reports and graphs indicating a red alert for the company. A liquidity crisis was looming, and he knew he needed a plan not only to gain the employees' trust, but also to avoid a financial collapse in his new administration. With a sense of urgency, Almeida decided to call for a new meeting. He wanted to gather all the employees and lay bare the true situation of the company, believing that transparency could be the key to uniting the team. When the moment arrived, the room was packed, but the atmosphere was tense. The old executives were still in their seats, but their gazes were challenging. "Thank you for being here," Almeida began, his voice firm and clear. "Today I want to be honest with you about our company's situation. We are on the brink of a financial crisis. Our capital reserves are running low, and if we don't act quickly, we may lose everything we have." The shock was palpable. Murmurs of disbelief filled the room, and Lucas, who was planning to sabotage Almeida, couldn't help but smile. "See? He doesn't know what he's doing," he thought. But Almeida, sensing the mood shifting, continued. "However, I believe that together we can change this reality. I have some ideas that could turn this situation around." He began to present his proposals: cost cuts in unnecessary areas, innovation in products, and most importantly, a new focus on strategic partnerships. "We need all of you. Every idea, every contribution could be the difference between success and failure, and I want you to feel comfortable sharing your opinions and suggestions." The atmosphere began to shift again. The faces that were once closed started to open up, and even those who opposed him began to listen. Almeida was not just asking for support, he was building a pathway for everyone to feel part of the solution. But deep down, Lucas and his allies were not willing to give up. Almeida's idea of uniting everyone around a common goal threatened their plans. They needed to act fast, and the battle for the company's future was far from over. As Almeida spoke, the seed of leadership was already beginning to sprout among some, but the shadow of sabotage still loomed, ready to manifest at any moment. The meeting room, once a silent battlefield, now thrummed with the renewed energy that emanated from Mr. Almeida's words. He was not a man of fiery speeches, but his sincerity and clear vision began to resonate with the employees. Looks that were once skeptical started to intertwine in murmurs of support. "We need to come together, or we will all sink together," he said, his eyes scanning the room. "What we have built, each of you, is more than just a job. It's our story, and we cannot let it be written by others." Almeida's words seemed to touch the hearts of many, but not all. Lucas, sitting in the last row, squirmed in his seat, powerless but unwilling to surrender. "He might have the room applauding, but he still hasn't seen what we have in mind," he murmured to Sarah, who was beside him, a determined expression on her face. "We need a plan that brings the truth to light. His inexperience will be his downfall." Meanwhile, Almeida continued to discuss ideas aimed not only at saving the company, but also at revitalizing team spirit. He proposed the creation of interdepartmental working groups where every employee could share their ideas and concerns. "I believe that the diversity of thoughts and experiences is what will set us apart. No one here should feel small in the face of a challenge," he said, and a murmur of approval began to spread through the room. But Lucas had other intentions. "We need to act, and fast," he whispered to his allies. "Let's use these meetings to infiltrate our ideas. If we can create confusion and discredit his proposals, we can put him in an unsustainable position." As employees began to split between those who saw Almeida's leadership as an opportunity and those who viewed it merely as a threat, tension mounted. In the following days, Mr. Almeida worked tirelessly to implement his proposals. He met with every department, listening to and incorporating suggestions, creating a collaborative environment that was both inspiring and challenging. In the cafeteria, discussions grew heated. "We can't let him manipulate us like this," Lucas said, gesturing. "If he gets us to believe we're all in the same boat, our chance to regain control will be lost." Sarah and the other young executives agreed, and together they began to formulate a series of rumors and misinformation aimed at destabilizing Almeida. Later, a new meeting was scheduled, and this time Almeida brought a special guest, a renowned consultant who would play a crucial role in helping to restructure the company. The atmosphere was tense, and the old executives began to feel threatened. "This is our last resort," Lucas thought, watching the consultant present himself with a confident smile. "We need to act before it's too late." During the presentation, Almeida became increasingly charismatic and persuasive, emphasizing the importance of a cohesive team and innovation. The consultant, for his part, endorsed his ideas, and the room, once filled with distrust, began to light up with possibilities. But the young executives, immune to the growing optimism, were determined to set a trap. However, what Lucas did not expect was that as he and his allies schemed, other employees began to rally around Almeida. The seeds of camaraderie were sprouting, and amidst adversity, a new team spirit was beginning to flourish. The battle for the company's future was far from decided, but Almeida's determination was shaping a new landscape that could surprise even the most skeptical. Later, the atmosphere in the company began to change. The meetings with the consultant brought new ideas and a contagious energy that resonated throughout all departments. Almeida, with his approachable manner and clear vision, began to gain the trust of many. The stories he shared about his youth, filled with challenges and triumphs, were more than mere anecdotes. They were life lessons that echoed in the minds and hearts of the young employees. "When I was your age, I faced a challenge much greater than any of you can imagine," he said in a meeting. "I was fired from a job I loved, but I didn't give up. I learned that instead of fighting against adversity, we should use it as fuel to grow." That phrase lingered in Sarah's mind, making her believe that maybe, just maybe, Almeida really could be right. However, Lucas and his allies were not willing to give up. With the company's atmosphere changing, they found themselves increasingly cornered. The disinformation tactics they had orchestrated began to fail, as the very team they tried to destabilize was uniting around Almeida. "We need to be more cunning," Lucas murmured in a corner of the cafeteria, his frustration evident. "If we can't discredit his ideas, we'll have to attack his personal weaknesses." Meanwhile, Almeida decided to organize a team-building event, a day of outdoor activities aimed at strengthening the bonds between employees. He believed it was the perfect time to show that unity could lead the company to a promising future. News of the event spread quickly, attracting both those who supported Almeida and those who still harbored doubts. On the day of the event, a radiant sun illuminated the park where the activities were scheduled. There were games, competitions, and even a small musical performance. Watching the interactions, Almeida felt a mix of hope and apprehension. He knew the success of the event could define the new culture he wanted to implement. Amid the laughter and playfulness, he realized the team was loosening up, absorbing not only the spirit of the day, but also the message that they were all in this journey together. On the other hand, Lucas and his allies were determined to sow discord. They gathered in a secluded corner of the park, conspiring to create an embarrassing situation for Almeida. "If we can make him look like a weak leader in front of everyone, we can turn the tide in our favor," Lucas planned, with a malevolent glint in his eyes. But what Lucas didn't anticipate was the strength Almeida had cultivated. During one of the activities, one employee, Carlos, a young man who had previously been uncertain about Almeida's leadership, stood up and in a moment of courage said, "No one here is just playing for the sake of playing. We are all building something greater. And if Mr. Almeida believes in us, then we must also believe in each other." Carlos's words were like an electric shock. Other voices joined him, creating a chorus of support that echoed throughout the park. Almeida, hearing this, felt a wave of emotion. What had started as a simple attempt to revitalize the company was transforming into a movement of genuine camaraderie. Lucas, realizing that his schemes were unraveling, felt the ground shift beneath his feet. The unity he was trying to dismantle was solidifying in an unshakable way. Not knowing how to react, he looked around and saw his allies weakening. The strength of the group, the camaraderie that Almeida had cultivated, was proving more powerful than any malicious plan he could devise. The battle was far from decided, but Mr. Almeida's determination and the new unity among the employees were beginning to shape a future that Lucas had never imagined. True strength, after all, was not just the power of a single individual, but the sum of all the hearts and minds coming together in one direction. Later, the big presentation day arrived. The conference room was filled with investors and board members, all wearing expressions of anticipation and curiosity. The atmosphere was tense, but the confidence Almeida had nurtured among the employees shone through in his posture. He took a deep breath, feeling the room's pulsing energy, and stepped onto the stage. As he looked at the audience, he saw not only potential investors, but also the faces of those who believed in him. Sarah, Carlos, and other employees who had become his allies were there, ready to support the new vision he was about to present. With a calm smile, Almeida began his speech. "Today, here, I am not just presenting numbers and charts," he said, gesturing passionately. "I am here to share a story. The story of a company that not only survived, but can thrive amidst adversity. A story that begins with each one of you." The words flowed like a river, with Almeida speaking about innovation, respect, and the importance of human connections. He presented his vision of a company that was not solely profit-driven, but based on values that unite people. When we value each other, we create an environment where everyone can shine. And that, my friends, is what will make us unbeatable in the market. As he spoke, he projected images of employees working together, moments of joy and overcoming, challenges and even small acts of kindness that occurred during the integration event. The audience began to engage, nodding in agreement, and the faces that had once been skeptical began to light up with the possibility of something greater. In a moment of vulnerability, Almeida paused and revealed his true identity. "You may not know, but I am not just a consultant. I am a former businessman who went through ups and downs, who learned that the value of a company lies in the people who make it up." He looked directly at Lucas, who was in the audience, and continued, "And that is why I'm here today, not just to present a proposal, but to invite you to join me on this journey of transformation." The silence in the room was palpable. Almeida had disarmed the skepticism with his honesty. Applause began to emerge, first timidly, but soon it turned into an enthusiastic ovation. He felt a wave of gratitude for those who had supported his vision, and for those who, even hesitantly, were beginning to see the truth in his words. But it was not just a personal victory. It was a collective one. Mr. Almeida knew that the battle against skepticism and resistance from some was not yet over. However, the energy in the room was palpable, and he was determined to seize that moment. He concluded his presentation with a quote that had become his mantra: "It's never too late to change, and together we are stronger." At the end of the event, the investors were not just impressed, but inspired. They saw a new chance, an opportunity to invest, not just in a company, but in a community that was forming. The victory was celebrated, but Almeida knew that the road ahead would require effort and resilience. As he left the room, he found his allies, who surrounded him with laughter and hugs. What had started as a solitary struggle had transformed into a movement of unity. Mr. Almeida looked at each of them, feeling the vibrant energy of accomplishment. He had proven that the true value of a company had never been in the numbers, but in the human connections that formed its foundation. And that day a new era began, illuminated by hope and collaboration.